Did you build another job or did you build a true business? Today, Jen Nielsen shares how to build a business that can grow without you, where your business does not depend on you every day. Let's get into this episode. Hey, I'm Shaytoya. I've spent more than 10 years in construction, working behind the scenes in marketing, hiring, and I've seen how overwhelming it can be to grow a business. That's how we've learned to build a sustainable business using clear systems, strong communication, and intentional recruiting. If you're ready for better hiring, smarter remarketing, and a business that doesn't fall apart when you step away, welcome to Building Better Contractor Businesses. Welcome, Jens Nielsen with Momentum Coaching Consulting. Well, I'm super excited to speak to you today. From what I've seen, so you have a lot of experience doing a lot of different things, but could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this industry?
Absolutely. Moved from Denmark 30 years ago, arrived in the US, in 1996. Had a long IT and telecommunication career, from beginner to executive kind of positions. And then roughly 10 years ago, I kind of started my own business. I got into commercial real estate investing, and then that led to coaching and consulting and so on. So I'm still into, investing and so on, but I also love to help, small businesses and individuals get more out of their personal life, their relationships, and their businesses and so on. So that's big for me, and raised a lot of money for different projects and so on. So that's a little bit about me that in a few short sentences here.
So awesome. And then from that transition, how did you transition of doing that?
Yeah. So in my mid 40s, I have another 20, 25 years of work for somebody else lined out. I was like, wow, I don't want to do this for another, I loved IT, but I didn't have the freedom, right? I'm from Denmark, as I mentioned, so I didn't have the freedom to go and travel for very long periods of time. I didn't have freedom to set my schedule and so on. So I wanted some freedom, and I decided that, going down this entrepreneur path, the real estate investing path was the journey. And then, as that happened, I decided there are other avenues that I could pursue. And, once you become an entrepreneur, you can do all kinds of fun things, right?
Yes, the sky is the limit. And then when it comes to, because you have done so much, but why do so many contractors feel like they cannot run their business without them?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. That's not only contractors. That's a lot of small businesses run into this problem. And the key problem here is that most businesses are started by an individual who is a good technician, a good plumber, carpenter, electrician. So people start that, but they forget that a business is not you. A business is systems and processes and employees and structure and everything else. But that's a completely different way of thinking from being a good, electrician. Yeah, I like to do that word, but building a business is nothing to do about being a good technician. It's about looking at systems and processes and building this thing. And most people struggle to get out of being in the business to working on the business. And that holds people back so badly, right? I mean, I've had friends and colleagues or associates who have, run their business for years. And then one day they're like, oh my God, I'm working more than I used to. I'm making less money. I got all the stress. And if I take a vacation, I don't make any money, right? I mean, that's really hard. And I'm sure you're experiencing that too. And that's what my passion is. Like, no, we got to free up. We got to free up the owner to build a business and let employees and other people do the work.
Got it. No, I totally get that. And, with you having so much time in IT and telecom, how did you transition your mindset from working in your business instead of audit?
Well, it's one of the things I learned really early on in what I was doing is that when we were setting up IT systems or telecommunication systems, we had to do it the same way over and over and over, right? So it always worked, always could be people could troubleshoot it, we could solve problems. So we didn't have to reinvent the wheel every time, right? So early on, I was like, okay, well, I would figure out how to set up a certain system, and then I would document it, and then I would make sure the documentation was accurate, and then I would hand it to somebody else. And that really taught me this fact. Well, if you can document this with screenshots and everything else, and it's clear enough, well, then somebody else, I mean, not somebody off the street, but somebody that had a level of experience could then take over and I could move on to the next thing. And that's how we leverage ourselves. We leverage ourselves by making other people do the work that we have planned out and scheduled out and structured.
So I know it was a little while ago. What was one of the first things, or if you remember, that you first completed for?
Oh, wow. Well, you're probably taking me back 20 plus years, right? First on, I would just figure it. I would just repeat the task and so on. But I think if I really think back, I think I wrote a troubleshooting guide back in the late 90s for some systems we were selling, a troubleshooting guide to like, if this is broken, look here. If that's broken, look here, right? That was probably my first experience in actually creating solutions that could be repeated by multiple people.
Cool. Oh, that is so cool. So when it comes to, let's just dive a little deeper. When it comes to, with your career, and I know it's been a while, was there anything that you possibly struggled at first to leverage for someone else to take over?
Yeah, I think, when I stepped out into, my entrepreneurship and so on, right? And I'll tell you a little bit, maybe step back and tell you a story that probably will resonate with people, right? So imagine buying your first rental property. A lot of people say, well, I'm gonna buy a single family home. I'm gonna fix it up. I'm gonna rent it out, and I'm gonna manage the tenants. I'm gonna manage any repairs and stuff like that. Well, this is an exact example of doing the wrong thing because, hey, you're trying to get a little bit of extra income and so on, but you don't want to spend your Saturdays and your Sundays fixing up the house, or you get a random call on a Friday night that the toilet is clogged. Then you bought yourself more work. I had that initial mindset, and then I started looking around to buy some rental property. I was like, oh my God, what am I thinking? I already have a job. I don't want to be driving down and doing these things. So that shifted my mindset from being what we call an owner-operator, and that can be rental, this could be a contractor, it can be anybody. It shifted the mindset from being an owner-operator, being in the business, to being an investor. And I wanted to be an investor because that would free my the key thing here is decouple your time from your income, or your income from your time, right? So I was like, wait a minute, I got to become an investor. So I started investing out of state, 3 or 4 hours away, so that I was not tempted to drive there every time there's a problem. I put management in place so that if there was a leaking toilet on a Friday night, there was people to do the work. Yes, I get it. That cost a management fee, but I would not have been able to scale. And at some point, we owned over 2,500 apartment units around the country with partners and stuff. There's no chance had I not had this mindset that I could have done that. And I think contractors struggle with the same thing. They're like, well, I got to be in everything because I don't trust anybody to do the work right. And if the customer don't see me on site, they don't know what's going on and so on, right? Well, you're just dooming yourself to having a job, right? Working every single day very hard and not necessarily making any more money that you could have been as a employee.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so true. Very, very true of what you've said. And when it comes to that story's, a lot of people who, get into what you're speaking about struggle with that, and not just real estate, but contractors as well. Are there any systems that you believe are a must for contractors to have in place?
Yeah. So, I think even before we have a system, we have to have a vision for what it is that we're doing here, right? If it is one person and they just want to be a single operator, okay, that's fine. That's your vision and no problem. If your vision is, hey, I want to build a true business that has me as the owner and have employees to do the work, well, start with that, right? Start with that vision for what it is that you're building, and then start planning out, okay, today maybe it's just me. Maybe in 6 months it's me and, 2 more people. So start building and planning out the structure you want, because we cannot put systems in place until we have the structure, or at least an idea of the structure. By structure, I say, I got, 2 master plumbers and a junior plumber and apprentice and all these and the accounting and HR. Once you start planning that out, then you can start, putting the systems in place. And when I say by systems, well, it can be as simple as a 1-page, standard operating procedure for how you do a certain job. It could be more complicated, how do you build people and stuff like that, right? But I think people they think there's a magical system out there. That's not the case. It's thinking through what is the end game, or what is the end state, and then plan every step along the way there. So I'm not sure if I answered your question right, but it's I think of systems as just people and processes, right?
Yeah, no, I think so too. Because you said you first have to have the vision of where you want to go. So when it comes to having a team, how do you get your team to take ownership of the roles that you're having them do?
Yeah, that's a great one, right? Because and I like accountability as a better word. And we call it, when we create structures, we call them accountability charts. Okay, so accountability means that you are clear about what you are accountable for. All right, so let's say you are a master plumber. Well, you're accountable for plumbing this house, whatever that is. If there is a problem with that plumbing, it falls on you. Even if you had an apprentice working for you, it still falls on you because you're ultimately accountable for that. Now, people will defer accountability and, whatever happened, the other contractor stepped on my lines and broke them or whatever. Well, yeah, that sucks. But in the end, this is your job. Got to get it done. It's not for punishing people. It's not to be like beat them over a hammer. It's to say that we are delivering a certain product. We're doing it at a certain quality to our customers. And ultimately, you're getting paid for doing that. If people deflect and don't own it, you have two options, right? You can train and reinforce what it is you want, or maybe that's not the right person for the job, right?
Got it. So you talked about accountability charts. I know I personally heard of accountability charts reading What the Heck is the US? Is that where you got it from, or was there
Yeah,
some
it's from the book Traction. The book
traction? Yes.
Traction, yeah, it is, and that's the system that I like to use with people that I work with. Right, I'm not a certified EOS implementer, but I know enough of the tools because that gives me freedom to do stuff. It's excellent, and if any of your listeners haven't gone through that, buy that book, go through that planning and see, okay, what's actually happening here? What am I not doing right? And if it's too much for you, find someone that can help you work through all.
Yeah. No, I've read all the books. So that's so awesome. I'm so glad to hear that because our team follows those systems through the accountability chart. So I love that. When it comes to advice, what's one most important piece of advice would you give to a contractor?
I mean, it just comes back to this. Are you building a business or do you have a job, right? That's a question, right? That's a question. And if they say I'm building a business, my advice would be, okay, spend some time planning out what that business looks like. So you don't just try to go out and get jobs and you just work yourself ragged, right? Go and spend some time planning. And if you don't know how to do that, you struggle with that, find somebody who has, been in a business or has like a planning mindset or who has read Traction and stuff like that, right? And get with that person because that's who you need on your side.
Yes, I agree with you. And then Jens, if you could kind of just share more with us, because you've provided so much value just in this short amount of time. If someone's looking to possibly work with you, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time up front getting to know what that person or that company needs, So the best way is just reach out to me. My website is just my first name, JENS, and then last name Nielsen, NIELSEN.US, jensnielsen.us. There are links to, my phone number is actually on there, or people can book a free diagnostic call and we just get on and we talk about what's going on. I don't have a cookie cutter solution for anybody. I need to understand that person's or company's problem or challenge. And then we together will work on a way to come up with a plan.
Got it. No, I love that because no business is the same. We're all at different levels.
That's right.
Jens, before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, just, I think it doesn't really matter what business you're in. As humans, we have been in the business world for millennia, and there's a few set ways of running a business very efficiently. And even if you're stuck in something that's not working well, there's always hope. You can always make changes and do things that's going to make your business more effective and efficient, right? So if you're overwhelmed and underpaid and stuff like that, just slow down for a minute and get with somebody that can help you get through that and move on to the next phase.
Yes, exactly. Well, Jens, this was absolutely amazing today. I'm very excited to share this with our audience. And you have a great day.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun.
You too. If you believe that this episode brought you real clarity, be sure to share it with another contractor who also needs it. And if you want to keep this conversation going, be sure to join our community of contractors inside Building Better Contractor Businesses Facebook group. This is a community where we talk through the real problems that you are having in your business. The link will be found in our show notes. And remember, we are not just completing projects. We are building better contractor businesses. I will see you next time.